There's something moving through the collective right now. Something most people can't name, but everyone's beginning to feel. A stirring in the field. An acceleration that's been building beneath the surface of consensus reality. And if you're here watching this before December 15th, you're catching a wave that's about to crest. This isn't about arbitrary dates or manufactured urgency. This is about a convergence point, a moment where the energetic architecture of what's possible shifts, and those who are aware, those who are paying attention, they get to ride that shift consciously instead of being swept along by it unconsciously. Because here's what's actually happening right now. The frequency of the planet is shifting. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, literally shifting. And December 15th marks a threshold in that shift, a point where certain energetic doors that have been opening start to solidify into new structures of reality. Think of it like this. Reality isn't static. It's a field of probability that responds to collective and individual consciousness. And right now, that field is more malleable, more responsive, more fluid than it's been in decades. But that window, that particular opening, it doesn't stay wide forever. What you're sensing, that restlessness, that feeling like time is moving differently, like there's something you need to understand before a moment passes. That's not your imagination. That's your consciousness picking up on actual shifts in the morphic field. Your body knows before your mind catches up. Your intuition registers these transitions before your rational thinking can make sense of them. And if you've been feeling called, if you've been sensing urgency without understanding why, this is why. Let's talk about what's really unfolding beneath the surface of your everyday awareness, because there's a preparation happening, whether you realize it or not. The universe isn't random. Consciousness doesn't evolve by accident. There are inflection points, moments where the trajectory of what's possible bends, where new timelines become accessible, where previously closed doors suddenly swing open. And we're in one of those moments right now. But here's the crucial part most people miss. These moments require readiness. They require you to have done the internal work that allows you to even perceive the opening, let alone move through it. You see, transformation doesn't happen all at once. It happens in layers. First, there's the discomfort. The way your old life starts feeling too tight, too small, like clothes you've outgrown but haven't taken off yet. Then there's the questioning. The way certainties you built your identity around start feeling less certain. Beliefs you never thought to examine suddenly seem arbitrary. Patterns you've been running unconsciously become visible for the first time. And then, if you're paying attention, if you're willing to stay with the discomfort instead of numbing it or pushing it away, there's the opening. The moment where you realize you're not who you thought you were, and that's not a problem. It's a revelation. Most people hit that first layer of discomfort and immediately try to fix it. They change jobs, end relationships, move cities, thinking the discomfort is about external circumstances. But what's happening right now, what's accelerating toward December 15th, it's not about external changes. It's about a fundamental rewiring of how you interface with reality itself. It's about your consciousness upgrading its operating system, and you can't upgrade by rearranging the furniture. You upgrade by being willing to question the architecture of the house. Think about how you've been feeling these past few weeks. Notice the patterns. Have you been sleeping differently? Dreaming more vividly, more intensely? Have you been experiencing moments where time seems to skip or stretch, where you look at the clock and it doesn't match your internal sense of how much time has passed. Have you been having thoughts, insights, knowing that seem to come from somewhere deeper than your usual thinking mind? These aren't glitches. These are symptoms of your consciousness beginning to operate at a different frequency. Your awareness is expanding, and when awareness expands, it doesn't fit into the old containers anymore. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is what December 15th represents. There are moments in the evolution of consciousness where individual transformation intersects with collective transformation, where your personal awakening syncs up with a larger planetary awakening. And when that happens, when those two waves meet, the impact is exponential. What might take years of individual inner work can happen in weeks, days, even moments, because you're not just working with your own energy anymore. You're plugged into a collective field that's reorganizing itself at the fundamental level. The people who understand this, who recognize these convergence points and consciously align with them, they're the ones who seem to make quantum leaps in their reality. They're the ones who suddenly manifest opportunities that seemed impossible a month ago. They're the ones whose lives transform in ways that make other people say, "That was lucky," or "They must have connections," when really what happened was they learned to work with the field instead of against it. They learned to sense the currents and move with them instead of trying to swim upstream through sheer force of will. So what does it mean to work with the field? What does it mean to consciously align with this threshold we're approaching? It starts with understanding that reality is not something that happens to you. Reality is something you're participating in, creating every single moment through the quality of your consciousness, through the frequency you're broadcasting, through the stories you're telling yourself about what's possible and what's not. Most people are creating from old programming, old fears, old beliefs they inherited from a world that was operating at a completely different frequency than where we are now. And this is the gift of these threshold moments. They give you the opportunity to interrupt the pattern, to step outside the loop of unconscious creation and choose something different, to literally rewire your relationship with reality before the new structures solidify. Because once certain patterns lock in, once new paradigms become the consensus reality, they're harder to shift. Not impossible, but harder. Right now, right here in this liminal space before December 15th, the clay is still wet. You can shape it. You can mold it. You can imprint your consciousness onto the field in ways that will ripple forward through your entire timeline. Take a moment right now and feel into your body. Not your thinking, your feeling. Where are you holding tension? Where does your body contract when you imagine your life actually working out? When you imagine your deepest desires not just as fantasies, but as lived reality. That contraction, that's old programming. That's the part of you that learned it's not safe to want, not safe to expand, not safe to be fully alive. And that programming, it's been running in the background of your consciousness like malware, quietly sabotaging every attempt to create something new because on a subconscious level, new equals dangerous, unknown equals threatening. But what's happening right now, this acceleration toward December 15th, it's creating enough energetic pressure to surface all of that old programming so it can finally be seen, acknowledged, and released. It's not comfortable. Growth never is, but it's necessary. You can't build a new reality on a foundation of old fear. You can't step into your sovereignty while still carrying the belief that you're powerless. You can't manifest alignment while operating from fragmentation. The field is forcing coherence. It's forcing integration. It's forcing you to either evolve or remain stuck, and the discomfort you're feeling. That's the friction of those two possibilities rubbing against each other. Here's what most people don't understand about manifestation, about creating reality, about working with consciousness. It's not about technique. It's not about affirmations or visualization or law of attraction formulas. Those things can be tools, but they're not the foundation. The foundation is frequency. The foundation is the actual state of your nervous system, the actual coherence of your energy field, the actual quality of presence you're able to maintain moment to moment. And you can't fake frequency. You can't think your way into a different vibration. You have to become it. You have to embody it. You have to let it reorganize you at the cellular level. This is what the preparation has been about. All the challenges you've faced, all the relationships that didn't work out, all the opportunities that fell through, all the times you thought you were failing or falling behind, you weren't. You were being refined. You were being cleared. You were being prepared for a level of reality that requires a different quality of consciousness than where you were operating from before. And now, as we approach this threshold, you're finding out whether you did the work or just thought about the work. You're finding out whether you actually integrated the lessons or just intellectually understood them. If you're still carrying resentment, if you're still blaming external circumstances for your internal state, if you're still waiting for permission, validation, or perfect conditions before you step into your power, December 15th is going to feel like just another day. The threshold will be there, but you won't be able to perceive it because perception requires matching frequency. You can't see what you're not vibrationally aligned with. You can't access what you're not energetically coherent with. This is basic quantum mechanics. The observer effect isn't just about physics experiments in laboratories. It's about your lived reality every single day. You only perceive what you're prepared to perceive, and what you perceive shapes what becomes possible. So the question isn't really about December 15th. The question is about now. About this moment, about whether you're willing to do what it takes to become the version of yourself that can actually hold the reality you say you want. Because here's the truth that most spiritual teachers won't tell you. Wanting something isn't enough. Visualizing something isn't enough. Even believing something is possible isn't enough. You have to become the frequency match for it. You have to reorganize your entire system around a new baseline of what's normal, what's natural, what's just how things are. And that reorganization, it's not comfortable. It requires you to let go of every identity you've been clutching, every story you've been telling about who you are and what's possible for you. It requires you to move through the fear of being seen, the fear of success, the fear of actually having what you've always wanted and discovering it doesn't fix the underlying emptiness you've been running from your whole life. Because that's what this is really about. Not manifestation, not reality creation, liberation, freedom from the prison of conditioned consciousness, freedom to be who you actually are beneath all the programming. The field right now, it's supporting that liberation in unprecedented ways. The energetic architecture of reality is literally being rewired to make awakening easier, to make transformation more accessible, to make the shift from separation consciousness to unity consciousness a more natural, fluid process. But you still have to do your part. You still have to show up. You still have to be willing to release what no longer serves, even when it's scary, even when everyone around you thinks you're crazy for walking away from what looks like security. And let me tell you something about security that nobody wants to hear. What you think is keeping you safe is actually keeping you small. The job you hate but won't leave because it pays the bills. The relationship that stopped growing years ago, but you stay in because you're afraid of being alone. The city you live in that drains your energy, but you won't move because all your friends are here. These aren't anchors, they're chains. And the universe is asking you, right now, in these days before December 15th, how much longer are you going to pretend that chains feel like safety? Because here's what happens when you finally release what's not serving you. You don't fall apart. You don't collapse into chaos. You discover that you were holding yourself up the entire time. You realize that the strength you were using to keep those situations together, that energy could have been flowing toward what actually lights you up, what actually feeds your soul, what actually matches the frequency of who you're becoming. But you had it locked in maintenance mode, constantly managing dysfunction, constantly compensating for misalignment, constantly trying to make something work that was never meant to work in the first place. And this is where it gets really interesting. When you start releasing what doesn't serve, when you start creating space in your life, the universe has room to deliver what you've been asking for. But it can't deliver new opportunities into a life that's already full of old commitments. It can't bring aligned relationships when all your time and energy is tied up in relationships that drain you. It can't manifest abundance when you're locked into a scarcity mindset that says you have to hold on to what you have because there's not enough to go around. December 15th represents a moment where those old patterns, those old holding patterns, they become untenable. The pressure becomes too much. The friction becomes too uncomfortable, and you're forced to choose. Do you release gracefully, consciously, with awareness? Or do you wait until life rips it away from you? Both paths lead to the same place. Both paths lead to transformation. But one feels like surrender, and the other feels like devastation. And the difference, the entire difference, is whether you're working with the process or fighting against it. So let's talk about what working with the process actually looks like. It starts with radical honesty. Not the honesty you perform for other people, but the honesty you practice in the privacy of your own consciousness. The honesty that says, yes, I'm scared. Yes, I don't know what comes next. Yes, I'm holding on to things that no longer fit, because at least they're familiar. That level of honesty, it's the beginning of real transformation, because you can't heal what you won't acknowledge. You can't shift what you won't see. You can't release what you pretend isn't there. And here's what happens when you start practicing that level of honesty. Your entire system begins to relax. All that energy you were using to maintain the illusion, to keep up appearances, to pretend everything's fine when it's not, that energy becomes available for creation, for manifestation, for actually building the life you want instead of constantly defending the life you've settled for. And that shift, that release of energy, it's palpable. Other people feel it. Opportunities respond to it. The field recognizes it and says, oh, this one's ready, this one's available, this one's done playing small. If this resonates with you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you stay connected to this frequency as we move through this threshold together. Now I want to hear from you. What old pattern or belief are you choosing to release before December 15th? Drop it in the comments below. Speaking it into the field activates the release. But working with the process also requires patience. Not passive waiting, active patience. The kind of patience that trusts timing even when timing doesn't make logical sense. Because consciousness operates on a different timeline than the mind. The mind wants everything now. It wants guarantees and certainty and clear paths. But consciousness works in spirals, not straight lines. It circles back to the same lessons at deeper levels. It reveals understanding in layers, each layer preparing you for the next. And you can't rush that process without undermining it. Now, what we're exploring today barely scratches the surface of how to actually become the frequency, rather than just broadcasting it temporarily. If you're sensing there are deeper layers to this, that's because there are. I've laid out the complete framework for moving from unconscious transmission to conscious embodiment in my book, Beyond the Frequencies, a quantum guide to consciousness mastery, where we explore the 9 master frequencies that shift you from seeking to being. It's linked in the pinned comment below. This is why so many people get frustrated with spiritual practice, with personal development, with transformation work. They want immediate results. They want to do a meditation or read a book or attend a workshop and have their entire life change overnight. And yes, breakthrough moments happen. Quantum leaps are real. But they don't happen in isolation. They happen after months, sometimes years, of steady preparation. They happen when you've done enough internal work that your system can actually handle the expansion. They happen when you're ready, not when you're impatient. And this is where most people give up. Right before the breakthrough. Right before everything clicks into place. They get tired of waiting. They get discouraged by the lack of visible progress. They start doubting whether any of this is real, whether consciousness actually matters, whether trying to evolve is worth the effort, and they go back to sleep. They go back to the old patterns, the old stories, the old limitations, and they miss the threshold entirely. They miss the moment when everything they've been preparing for becomes available. Don't be that person. Don't give up right before the shift. Don't let impatience rob you of everything you've been working toward. Because I promise you, if you've made it this far, if you've been doing the work, if you've been staying conscious even when it's hard, you're closer than you think. The breakthrough is near. The shift is imminent. The transformation you've been sensing, it's not someday. It's not eventually. It's now. It's happening in these moments leading up to December 15th. And this is where community becomes crucial. This is why, if this message is resonating, if something in you is recognizing the truth of what's being shared here, then take a moment and comment below with these exact words. I choose conscious transformation. Not as a casual gesture, as an energetic declaration, as a signal to the field that you're ready, that you're willing, that you're saying yes to the evolution that's trying to happen through you. Because when you declare something publicly, when you speak it into the collective field, you're not just thinking it anymore. You're committing to it. And commitment activates support. Commitment creates coherence. Commitment tells the universe, I'm serious, show me what I need to see, give me what I need to receive, guide me where I need to go. See, December 15th isn't a deadline. It's not about rushing or panic or fear of missing out. It's a marker. It's a moment where certain frequencies that have been available start to stabilize into the new normal. And if you're aligned, if you've done the work, if you've been paying attention to the signs and following the guidance, then you'll experience it as a breakthrough, as a culmination, as the moment where everything you've been preparing for finally clicks into place. But if you've been resisting, if you've been avoiding, If you've been staying comfortable in patterns that no longer serve, then you might experience it as crisis, as chaos, as everything falling apart so it can be rebuilt in a configuration that actually supports where consciousness is heading. Neither experience is wrong. Both are part of the process. But one is a lot more pleasant than the other. And you get to choose which one you experience by the choices you make right now in these remaining days about how you show up, what you prioritize, where you place your attention. This isn't about perfection. This isn't about getting it all figured out before some cosmic deadline. This is about willingness. This is about saying yes even when you're scared. This is about trusting the intelligence that's orchestrating all of this, the intelligence that lives in you as you, that knows exactly what you need and when you need it. Your soul has been preparing you for this moment your entire life. Every experience, every relationship, every joy, and every heartbreak, it was all curriculum. It was all training. It was all designed to get you to this exact point where you're ready to step through a threshold that most people won't even see exists. And that's not about being special or chosen or better than anyone else. That's about being awake. That's about being present. That's about being willing to see what's actually here instead of being lost in the stories about what should be here or what used to be here. The universe is inviting you into a new way of being. Not thinking, being. And being requires presence. It requires you to get out of your head and into your body, out of your past and into this moment, out of your fear and into your knowing. Because you do know. Deep down, beneath all the doubt and confusion and second guessing, you know exactly what you're being called toward. You know what needs to change. You know what you need to release. You know what you need to embrace. The question is whether you're going to trust that knowing or continue to override it with logic, with other people's opinions, with safe but soul-crushing compromises. Right now, the field is asking, are you in or are you out? Are you ready to evolve or are you going to stay comfortable? Are you willing to become who you came here to be, or are you going to keep playing small because it's familiar? There's no judgment either way. But there are consequences, not punishments, consequences. Natural results of the choices you make about how you engage with consciousness, with reality, with your own transformation. And here's what I want you to really understand. December 15th is coming, whether you're ready or not. The threshold is happening. The shift is occurring. The field is reorganizing. Your only choice is whether you move through it consciously or unconsciously, whether you align with it intentionally or get dragged through it reactively. And the difference between those two experiences, it's everything. One feels like surrender, like flow, like finally coming home to yourself. The other feels like being torn apart, like everything you relied on is being ripped away, like chaos you have no control over. Both are transformation. Both are evolution. But one you're participating in consciously, and one is happening to you. And which one you experience depends entirely on the state of consciousness you're operating from right now, in these days leading up to this threshold. So this is your invitation. This is your call to action. Not someday. Not when you feel ready. Now. Because now is all there ever is, and waiting for perfect conditions is just another way of saying no to life, no to growth, no to the very thing your soul has been crying out for. Let me share something with you that might shift your entire perspective on what's happening right now. You think you're waiting for the right moment to transform. You think you're preparing, getting ready, building up courage. But here's the truth. Transformation isn't waiting for you. You're waiting for transformation. You're the bottleneck. You're the resistance. The universe is ready. The field is ready. The opportunities are ready. What's not ready is your willingness to let go of the identity you've been clutching, the story you've been telling, the version of yourself that feels safe because it's known, even though it's killing your spirit slowly, quietly, relentlessly. And I know that sounds harsh. I know it's not what you want to hear. You want someone to tell you it's okay to wait. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to take your time. And yes, compassion matters. Yes, self-kindness matters. But so does truth. And the truth is, you've been taking your time. You've been waiting. You've been scared for years, maybe decades. And where has that gotten you? Has playing it safe brought you the life you dream about? Has staying comfortable created the reality you desire? Has avoiding risk protected you from pain? No. It's created a different kind of pain. The pain of unlived potential. The pain of dreams deferred. The pain of knowing you're capable of more but choosing less because more feels dangerous. And that pain, that slow erosion of your spirit, it's worse than the temporary discomfort of growth. It's worse than the uncertainty of transformation. It's worse than the fear of stepping into the unknown. Because at least transformation leads somewhere. At least growth creates something new. But staying stuck, that just creates more of the same. More disappointment. More regret. More nights lying awake wondering why your life doesn't match what you know you're capable of. December 15th represents a line in the sand. Not drawn by the universe, but drawn by you. It's a moment where you get to decide, am I done with this pattern? Am I finished playing small? Am I ready to stop negotiating with my limitations and start embodying my potential? And yes, it's scary. Yes, it's uncertain. Yes, you don't know exactly what comes next. But you know what's even scarier? Looking back 10 years from now and realizing you're still in the same place, still running the same patterns, still waiting for permission to be who you actually are. The energy moving through the collective right now, it's not subtle anymore. It's not a whisper. It's a roar. It's a wave building momentum, and you're either going to ride it or get swashed by it. And riding it doesn't mean you have to have it all figured out. It doesn't mean you need to be perfect or enlightened or beyond fear. It means you're willing to move forward even while scared. It means you're choosing growth over comfort. It means you're trusting that who you're becoming is more important than who you've been. And here's what nobody tells you about that choice. Once you make it, once you really commit, the universe rushes to support you. Synchronicities multiply. Opportunities appear. People show up who are aligned with your new frequency. Resources become available that weren't there before. Not because the universe wasn't ready to help, but because you weren't ready to receive. You were too busy holding on to what needed to be released. Too busy defending what needed to dissolve. Too busy maintaining what needed to transform. But when you let go, when you create space, when you signal to the field through your choices and your energy and your commitment that you're ready for something different, the response is immediate. Not always visible, not always obvious, but always there. The field reorganizes around your new frequency. Reality begins to reflect your new state. And what seemed impossible yesterday becomes inevitable today because you're not the same person anymore. You've shifted. You've evolved. You've become someone who can hold a different level of reality. This is quantum mechanics in action. This is consciousness creating reality in real time. This is you discovering that you're not a passive observer of your life, but an active participant in its creation. And that discovery, that recognition of your own power, it changes everything. It has to. Because once you see it, once you know it, you can't unknown it. You can't go back to pretending you're helpless. You can't keep playing victim to circumstances that you're actually creating through the frequency you're broadcasting. And yes, this requires responsibility. Real responsibility. Not blame, not guilt, not shame, but the recognition that if you're creating this, then you can create something else. If this reality emerged from your consciousness, then a different reality can emerge from a different state of consciousness. And that's not burden, that's liberation, that's freedom. That's the recognition that you're not trapped, you're not stuck, you're not limited by anything except your own willingness to change. So as we move closer to December 15th, I want you to start paying attention to what you're creating, not just in your external life, but in your internal world. What thoughts are you repetitively thinking? What emotions are you habitually feeling? What stories are you constantly telling yourself about who you are and what's possible? Because those patterns, they're not neutral. They're instructions to the field. They're signals that tell reality what to create more of. And if you're broadcasting limitation, reality delivers limitation. If you're broadcasting possibility, reality delivers possibility. It's that simple and that profound. Now here's something crucial that most people overlook when they're working with consciousness, when they're trying to shift their reality. They focus on the big moments, the grand gestures, the dramatic transformations. But transformation doesn't actually happen in those big moments. Those are just the visible evidence of something that's been happening all along in the small choices, in the micro decisions, in the seemingly insignificant moments where you chose slightly differently than you used to. Every time you catch yourself in an old pattern and choose something new, even incrementally new, you're rewiring. Every time you feel the pull toward comfort and choose growth instead, you're evolving. Every time you notice fear arising and you move forward anyway, you're becoming. And these small moments, they accumulate, they compound, they build momentum that eventually reaches a tipping point where suddenly everything shifts at once. But it wasn't sudden. It was the result of 1,000 small choices that nobody saw but you. This is what December 15th is really about. It's not a magic date where everything changes without your participation. It's a convergence point where all those small choices you've been making, all that internal work you've been doing, all that consciousness you've been cultivating, it reaches critical mass. The field recognizes your new frequency and responds accordingly. But you have to have been putting in the work. You have to have been making those small choices. You have to have been showing up for your own transformation day after day, moment after moment. And this is where a lot of people get confused. They think they can coast for months, stay comfortable, avoid the hard choices, and then when some threshold date arrives, they'll suddenly be ready. But that's not how consciousness works. That's not how transformation happens. You're either evolving or you're staying the same. There's no neutral. Every moment you're not choosing growth, you're choosing stagnation. Not because you're bad or wrong or failing, but because that's just how energy works. It's either moving or it's stuck. It's either flowing or it's blocked. It's either alive or it's dying. So what are you choosing right now, in this moment? Not what do you want to choose, not what you plan to choose tomorrow, but what are you actually choosing right now? Because this moment is where your power lives. Not in the past, not in the future. Here, now. In this present awareness where you have the capacity to choose differently than you've ever chosen before, to show up differently than you've ever shown up before, to be someone you've never been before. And that's terrifying to the ego. The ego wants consistency. It wants predictability. It wants to know who you are so it can protect that identity, defend that version of you, keep you safe within known boundaries. But your soul doesn't care about safe. Your soul cares about alive, about authentic, about expressed, about becoming all that it came here to be. And sometimes, most times, those two drives are in direct conflict. The ego pulling toward safety and the soul pulling toward expansion. And you get to choose which one you follow. If this message has landed, if something in you is stirring, if you can feel the truth of what's being shared, even if you can't fully articulate it, then I invite you to subscribe to this channel. Not just to stay informed, but to stay connected to this frequency, to this conversation, to this community of people who are consciously choosing to evolve, to awaken, to participate in the radical transformation of consciousness that's happening on this planet right now. Because we're not doing this alone. We're doing this together. And the more of us who wake up, the easier it becomes for others to wake up. The more of us who choose consciousness, the more consciousness becomes the new normal. You're not here by accident. You didn't stumble onto this video randomly. You were guided here because some part of you, some wise, ancient part of your soul knew you needed to hear this, needed to remember this, needed to be reminded that you're not crazy, you're not alone, you're not imagining what you're feeling. It's real, it's happening, and you get to be part of it. You get to ride this wave. You get to experience firsthand what it means when consciousness evolves, when reality shifts, when everything you thought was fixed turns out to be fluid, responsive, infinitely malleable. But you have to be willing. You have to be open. You have to be brave enough to release the safety of the known and step into the mystery of what's becoming. And that's not easy. It goes against everything you've been conditioned to believe about how life works, about what's safe, about what's possible. But it's also the only way forward. Staying stuck isn't actually safe. It's just familiar. And familiar isn't the same as good. Familiar isn't the same as aligned. Familiar is just what your nervous system recognizes. And your nervous system, it's been running old programming for a very long time. The beauty of this moment, the gift of this threshold, is that you get to update that programming. You get to install new software that actually matches the reality you want to live in. But you have to do it consciously. You have to choose it deliberately. You have to say yes with your whole being, not just your mind, not just your words, but your actions, your choices, your moment-to-moment presence. So here's what I'm asking you to do right now. Before this video ends, before you move on to the next thing, before you let the momentum of this message dissipate back into the noise of your everyday life, I'm asking you to make a declaration, to send a signal to the field that you're ready. Drop one word in the comments. Just one word that captures the energy of what you're choosing as you move through this threshold. Not what you're feeling, what you're choosing. Because feeling is passive. Choosing is active. And we need your active participation. We need your conscious choice. We need you to show up not as a spectator, but as a creator, as a conscious participant in the unfolding of reality. And if you haven't already, subscribe. Not just to this channel, but to this frequency, to this commitment to consciousness, to this choice to evolve. Because the more of us who gather in this space, who hold this frequency together, the stronger the field becomes. The more support is available, the easier the transformation becomes for everyone. You're not just subscribing to content. You're joining a movement. You're adding your energy to a collective intention to wake up, to grow up, to show up as the conscious creators we actually are. If this message landed for you, consider sharing this video with someone who's also sensing this shift. When you share these consciousness principles, you're not just passing along information. You're creating an energetic ripple that accelerates both your transformation and theirs, strengthening the collective field we're all part of. December 15th is coming. The question is not whether the threshold will arrive. The question is whether you'll be ready when it does, whether you'll have done the internal work, whether you'll have released enough of the old to receive the new, whether you'll have aligned your frequency with the reality that's trying to birth itself through you. And that's not something that happens automatically. That's something you choose. That's something you commit to. That's something you practice moment by moment, breath by breath, choice by choice. The universe has been preparing you for this. Every challenge was curriculum. Every loss was liberation. Every moment of darkness was training you to trust your own inner light. And now you're here, at the threshold, with the choice in front of you. Will you step through consciously, or will you wait until life forces you through? Either way, you're going through. But the quality of the experience, the grace with which it unfolds, that's entirely up to you. Trust what you're feeling. Trust what you know. Trust that you were meant to receive this message at exactly this moment. Because you're exactly where you need to be. And what's coming, what's waiting on the other side of December 15th, it's everything you've been building toward. Everything you've been preparing for. Everything your soul has been whispering is possible. The universe has been conspiring on your behalf. Now it's time to consciously conspire with it. Now it's time to let yourself become what you came here to be. Now is the moment. This is the threshold. And you are ready. Now this threshold we've been discussing, it's part of a much larger pattern of consciousness evolution happening right now. The Arcturians have been transmitting specific upgrades to support exactly what we've covered today, and they're revealing precise next steps for those who are ready to align with these incoming frequencies. That video breaks down the actual mechanics of what's shifting in your energetic field and how to work with it consciously.